Aloha everyone and welcome to another Tinker's Academy video. I'm your host, Kay Elmer, and today we'd like to bring you with Philip von Holzendorf a tutorial on how to use the LeelaQ blocks. Before we jump into that, let me give you a quick disclaimer that neither LeelaQ Quantum Tech nor the Tinker's Academy recommend or endorse any specific tests, physicians, procedures, opinions, or other information that may be mentioned in this video. Reliance on any information appearing and discussed in this video is solely at everyone's own risk. Statements made have not been evaluated by the EFSA or FDA or any government derivatives thereof. LeelaQ Quantum Tech products and products that LeelaQ Quantum Tech may represent are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Thank you. So I'd like to just welcome, we've got Philip some more von Holzendorf, the owner-operator of LeelaQ on the line. Welcome, Philip. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Kay.
Yeah,
I'm doing
so
fine. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so the idea of creating this tutorial came up in the chat group on Telegram, and where there's so many people that got blocks over the holidays. We're asking lots of questions on how to use the blocks. So I just thought, it'd be a great idea. Someone recommended it, and then just letting you know, Philip was just absolutely on board the minute I mentioned it to him. So that's what this video is for: is to anyone who bought a block, a quantum block or an infinity block, and want to know like how to use it. So the first thing I want to just mention is that, on YouTube, if for those of you who use it, there's the LeelaQ has a YouTube channel called the Quantum Power Channel. And if you go into the video section here, are lots and lots and lots of tutorials that Philip has already made on how to, use multiple different products that LeelaQ sells. So just to point out for you block owners, then one of the first things you want to do when you get a block, or even if you're thinking about, or especially if you're thinking about getting a block, is to take a look at those tutorials, because those are already out there. There's 7 tutorials on the YouTube channel. This one will be on my channel, the Tinker's Academy, but we'll also try to see if we can link to it from the Telegram group. But there's already 7 YouTube videos on how to do, what to do with your block. So it's definitely something you can reference as a guide. So the first one was, the difference between the 2 blocks for anyone who's trying to figure out what the differences are. And then if you did get a quantum block, a summary and an unboxing and assembly video. And if you did get an infinity block, an introduction and an unboxing and assembly video for that. There's also one for folks that did get infinity blocks on how to upgrade your infinity block. So, really, really, really want to just make sure people know where to get information, especially, if you just got a new product, you're not sure what to do. This is definitely a resource, is to go to the YouTube channel. All right. So one of the things I want to jump in, the very first thing I thought would be helpful in the tutorial is to just go over the broad the high level use cases. And so, Philip, I basically thought up the 3. So kind of just guide me along, because you are the expert. But just the main things, the main 3 things, and then let me know if there's anything else that you would use a block for, right? And so, obviously, the first thing is that a block by itself is broadcasts quantum energy, and I always kind of refer to it. And I don't know if you gave me this phrase or not, but the idea of a quantum sun, right, where it's really bright in the middle and it just
Yes.
stretches out, and the center is this concentrated energy. And if you could just visualize the inside of the block as being the center of the sun, and the sun stretches out, and depending on which block you have, it's could be anywhere to a one entire house or an entire neighborhood. So it definitely broadcasts out this quantum energy. And if you put something in that block, then the frequency of whatever you put in it is also permeated throughout the energy field. So broadcasting energy and frequency is the first and foremost thing that happens once you set up the block. The second thing is you can use blocks to charge objects, people, pets, plants, and places. So everything that LeelaQ sells on the website has all been charged in a block, correct?
Yes, that's
And that's
absolutely
how it's
correct.
made. So yeah, so this is one of the most unique things about LeelaQ, is that they're not trying to manipulate or hold all this incredible technology to themselves. They literally are selling you the means to make your own. If you want to do that, and there is a licensing agreement because obviously it's proprietary to Leela, so it's not like buy one, start making things and selling them. If you want, there's a commercial license. But the idea here is that if you want to buy and make capsules for your children, your spouses, your family, and your friends, and not doing it from a monetary standpoint, but to share the energy and to share this positivity, then that's what this is for. Correct, Philip?
Yes, absolutely.
Cool. And then I think the third thing that you can use blocks for is to send quantum energy or send frequencies long distance, and that's something through like a quantum entanglement. We'll talk about that a little bit further, but that's probably the most fascinating aspect to the blocks, and probably the one thing that gets the most discussion because it is contra to everything you've ever been taught, but it is possible, and the blocks actually do that. So, Philip, is there any other like major what would you like if I gave you a block and said, "Hey, this is what it
Yep.
can do"? Are these the main three things? Is there anything that I left out?
So I think for people important to know is also that you can copy frequencies in it. It's sort of part of number two, but I would really maybe add another point and say, you copy frequencies because you can put a piece of a healing plant inside and copy it into any other object or into a glass of water, or whatever you actually put in, you could copy that. So you could be your, a homeopath, basically a quantum homeopath, can make quantum frequency medicine. You can think a lot. That's something you can do with that. And I want to share one thing because that part is actually not super accessible on the website, but we do have a section where there's quite an explanation about the quantum block and how it works and what you can do with it, as well as about the Infinity Bloc on there. You can reach it by going to the shop, click on Quantum Bloc or an Infinity Bloc, which one you're interested in, and then there's somewhere a sentence where it says, if you want to learn more, click here, and then you get to that section. Maybe what I'll do is I'll send you those links, Kay, and you can maybe put them in the video description, just if people want to read through it. It's by no means complete because it's so hard to be complete because there's so many possibilities, so many things you can do, but it's at least a great starting point. And I wanted to at least mention that.
Okay, great. I'll definitely add those to the video description so that there's a page for each block, and then people can go and read more about the block or Infinity or Q block. Okay, no, that's great. Thank you for mentioning the copy frequency. I just kind of take it for granted. I've been using these for so long. It's like I don't remember the little things that I kind of forget to mention. But thanks for adding that. Okay, so these are the four things you can do with your block, and they're pretty amazing things. So let's get into each one of these things as a tutorial so that people can kind of understand. The very first thing, right? I'm going to go ahead and I think I'll probably need to add a slide because we got an extra one here. But the first thing here is, you're basically charging objects. So when you're charging an object, which is one of the most prevalent use cases, right? People want to make things for the other family and friends, and also people want to charge stuff. Like first time I got a block, I think it's like everybody, they run around their house and they charge everything they own. That's kind of the first reaction. So for charging objects now, I do want to point out that there's one video that's already available on the Quantum Power channel, YouTube channel, called How to Charge Objects and Copy Frequencies. So there's already a video for that on how to use the quantum block for doing that. Now, in terms of like how do you use the Infinity Bloc to charge objects, there's not a specific video for that. So we're going to kind of go over the timings today. And just kind of maybe we can kind of just, Philip, if you can kind of give me the timings, I'll fill this out. And then people can kind of get an idea, hey, if I want to use a Q block to charge a metal object, what would be the process? And just we're talking about just charging it with quantum energy.
Yes, that sounds great. Just let me know when you want. So do you want to put it in right now?
Yeah, I'll ask you and you tell me. So if I wanted to charge a metal object, and the most common metal object, right, is people are charging cards or they're charging capsules, right? And by the way, I want to remind everybody you can charge your keys too, because if it's something you carry in your pocket all the time, why not? But if it's a piece of metal, how long would you put it in the Q block?
Yep, and I would operate with ranges here. So I would say 1 to 3 minutes.
Okay.
That's a good ballpark because, I mean, frankly, if you charge a metal in the quantum block for 30 to 45 seconds, it's already charged and it has a really nice charge. You can add a little bit to that by going longer, and then really after 3 minutes, there's nothing more you can add with a quantum block.
Okay. All right. Now, if you did that in an infinity block, how long would you put it in there?
Uh, that's about 15 seconds to, you know, about a minute. And here, uh, we probably have to have an asterisk that says maximum 3 minutes. It's actually a little bit more, but to be on the safer side, we always communicate 3 minutes just because you don't want to overcharge metals, which is possible in the infinity blocks. In the quantum block, you don't really need to worry about that. But in the infinity block, you don't want to put metals in and then forget you put them in.
Okay, so very
And
important.
people always, yeah, and people
Okay.
always ask, okay, so why? So what's the problem when it's overcharged? It's not like life-threatening or health-threatening by any means, but it's just something where you you create a piece that's overcharged in the sense that it still is directly connected to that quantum energy space it was in before. Even that sounds crazy, but that's really what happens. And it can be too strong on one end. And on the other hand, it can happen if there's a specific frequency in it that it spills over to other objects, and that is something you want to avoid. You can do that with magnetic brute force, or you can do it with actually adding quantum consciousness levels to an object, and that's actually what is happening if you're overcharging those metals.
Okay, that's why you never want to take something that's been in the I block and put it in the Q block, because then that object itself is going to affect the Q block, right?
Yes, and that's actually probably the most important to remember, because you would then upgrade the quantum block, which is not a good idea because the quantum block is set on a certain level just because of certain things you can do with it, like the quantum frequency medicine, for example, or
Yeah.
if you want to, have a cleaner pharmaceutical that you want to take, and you can do that in the quantum block, but you cannot do that in the infinity block because that is too strong. So for that purpose, you really want to keep the quantum block as is.
Okay. All right. So I guess, we're going to probably get into, I know a lot of people went and just got an I block, and they don't have a Q block. So we'll talk about that in a bit. But I just want to get down the basic timings right now, and then we'll get more into like, how do I use an I block if I don't have a Q block? But okay. So there's some things that people need to know. I mean, I mean, I just want to clarify though, but nothing's bad going to happen, right? It's just more like, it's just that if you do something where you affect your Q block, as you're in your own words, you're going to upgrade your Q block, which basically changes it so that all of the things you're going to learn in this tutorial, which is what uh, Philip and Roman painstakingly experimented with to figure out what all the timings were and how to use these blocks. Well, all of that advice is based on a standard out of the box Q block and out of the box I block, right? So if you
Correct.
upgrade anything, if you upgrade your Q block by accident, or if you purposely upgrade your infinity block, then you're off of baseline. So all of the like the quote, the instructions no longer apply to your blocks because your blocks are different. And so that's just something I think is that's what happens. So there's like, because I think people do kind of a worry about, did I break something or did I ruin it? And the answer is no, you didn't ruin it. It's just that the instructions now no longer apply to yours because you've now customized yours. Is that kind of correct? That's how I
Yes.
configure the best way I explain it to people. So yeah, so just keep that in
And
mind. It's not a bad thing. It's just that you have a now customized version of these things. So you're going to have to kind of tinker to figure out what your measurement times are going to be, because your blocks are now different than what's been worked out for instruction. So, all right, so let's finish. Let's fill this thing out. Uh, Now, if I wanted to use a Q block and I would just want to like charge shoes, charge a sweater, charge a jacket, how long would that take? Soft things that are made out of material.
yep. So I mean, I would still use about the same time if you're physically putting clothing in, for example.
Okay.
It's totally fine, but there's absolutely no limit to it, right? You feel
Okay.
free to leave it in for 30 minutes, 60 minutes in the quantum block. That doesn't really matter.
Okay.
And with the Infinity Bloc, that always works just a little bit faster. And I would say clothing and shoes. So so it doesn't really matter for the Infinity Bloc how what type of object you put in and
Oh,
how
okay.
fast it actually works. So you can say 15 seconds is anything that you put in within 15 seconds is already charged. Then you can up that charge a little bit depending on which object it is, and you can leave clothing and shoes in there as long as there's no metal in there for also 10-20 minutes. That's no problem, but it's not necessary. So literally after 60 seconds you pretty much have it charged. And since clothing items without any metal don't hold and transmit quantum energy that well anyway, most of what you're doing is you're cleansing the, if it's a t-shirt you put in, you're cleansing that and it has a better energy, but it's not that you add so much charge that you get a lot of transmission from it. That's why the clothing items that we offer, those are actually with high purity silver, just because there's a real charge that gets transmitted. So yeah, what you wrote is, I think, a good guideline for
Okay.
people.
Yeah. So there's a real difference, right, between just regular clothing and EMF shielded clothing, which is all of the products that you sell, and lots of other places as well. But EMF shielded clothing has fibers sewn into the material. So you're charging basically a metal and fabric item, and that metal is going to hold on to that charge, which is why you want to treat it like metal. But if you've got just like your regular old Nikes, that's just like treated like clothing, right?
Yes,
Okay,
I
perfect.
agree.
What about plastics? Like cutlery, cutlery, just all, just so much stuff. I know that people charge plastics and like toys and things like that. So is it pretty much going to be the same as fabrics?
Yes, it's pretty much the same. And I do want to mention here that on our own website, I think the minimum we show is about 10 seconds and not 15 seconds, but I still suggest you leave the 15 seconds there. First of all, it doesn't really make such a big difference, but we found over time that while 10 seconds is really enough, it's our minds that it, they constantly think 10 seconds just can't be enough. I don't know, it's a timing thing, and it seems it's easier for people to just work with it if it's 15 seconds minimum. That
Okay.
it's just been our experience.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Now here's the thing about the next item, which is crystals and stones. Um, because you mentioned to me once when I was trying to make a crystal block that a crystal is almost like has the same energy signature as a person. So so crystals and stones are like nothing else out there. It's not metal, it's not fabric, it's not plastic. It is its own entirely separate thing. So would the Q block, like let's say I want to charge a crystal, and I do remember you once saying, it's not a good idea to put frequencies into crystals, but just charge them, right? Is that correct? So there's, so the whole idea of charging a crystal is just don't put a frequency in it, just charge it and let its own frequency be enhanced by the charging. Is that a good way to
Yes,
look at it? And does that apply to
yes,
stones as well? Because stones,
yes.
Okay, yeah,
Well,
because the
yes,
whole Reiki thing, and okay, go ahead.
yep,
I'm sorry.
I would do it exactly like that with stones and crystals, and especially crystals have very specific qualities. So if you take an amethyst, for example, or a Lemurian crystal, they really have completely individual energies and qualities, really. And it's actually fascinating. It's a very fascinating field, this whole crystal healing. And what you want to do is, and what you can do with the blocks is you can really bring out the full potential of any of those crystals. Now, if you add different frequencies, you're basically trying to change the core quality and character of that crystal. It's almost as if you wanted to, yeah. And so I don't even need an analogy. It's just something I wouldn't do. And in terms of charging time with the Infinity Bloc, probably I wouldn't do any more than a minute. Frankly, that's already enough, and I say in a moment also why. And then with the Quantum Bloc, probably not more than 2 to 3 minutes. And again, the minimum times would be the same that we've discussed before. And what we actually found is that when we started to overcharge a crystal, it was becoming too much. It's this almost as if you're blowing up a balloon and then you keep blowing until it pops. It's not really the case with the crystal that it pops, but it's almost overwhelming to the crystal, and it's not necessary because it's already at this perfect state once you've charged it with the times that we just mentioned.
Okay. Okay, so we're looking at to charge a crystal, this just quantum energy or a stone, 1 to 3 minutes, but no more than 3 minutes max, right? So,
Yes,
okay, so just leave. Okay,
exactly.
so, all right, so it's important not to go more than three. And then with an Infinity Bloc, you can charge a crystal 15 to 60 seconds, but don't go over 1 minute max, right?
Yes.
Okay. Let's talk about electronics. If I want to, this is something I do all the time, which is I put my cell phone in there at least once a month and let it charge for a few minutes. Because I remember like a long time ago, you told us to give it a recharge every now and then because electronics are different than all these other things. So if we could talk about, let's start off with what is the timing if I want to put like my cell phone or I want to put my Wi-Fi router, my tablet, a laptop, all this electronics. What is the timing for a Q block to put an electronic item into a Q block? Is it the same as like pretty much this?
Um, yeah. So let's start with the Infinity Bloc here
Okay.
because so what we found is 30 seconds is kind of necessary um, for a long lasting charge. And electronics are a little bit different because they are actively sucking or trying to suck out quantum energy out of it. Um, so it's different from just a regular metal in that sense or clothing item. So it's something where we actually don't even know the full answer to that, but we just recommend recharge it every 3 to 6 months if you use that item on a regular basis. That's what we recommend. And the 30-second max can be extended to 5 to 10 minutes. That may sound a little counterintuitive because there's certainly metals involved in the electronics, but, and that's also found on the website, do not put those electronics then in the Quantum Bloc afterwards anymore. That's the only
Yeah.
thing you need to remember, but you don't have this overcharging problem with the electronics for whatever reason. So you can leave it in for 5 to 10 minutes max. I would personally not put it in for longer than 3 minutes, so keep it like the metals, but it's possible.
Okay. I'm just writing up some little notes so that when you guys are who are watching this, you can go ahead and then just like basically do a screen save of this page, so you'll have all the numbers when I'm done. So There's just a little disclaimer. Don't place an object charged in an I block in a Q block. Okay. So
It's
if I have a
actually
self, yeah.
interesting.
Oh, go ahead.
So I just want to mention real quick. So when we did those tests, it was fascinating because we thought at first, and so we tested it with cell phones, for example, that were shut off, and then we tested it with cell phones that were completely connected and working. And the fascinating thing with the working cell phone was that not only did the cell phone get charged, but at some point it started to actually go into the networks and connections and was charging those as well, like little red lines energetically. That's how you could see it, where the energy went in. It was fascinating. It was something extremely positive, and that's also the reason actually why we even mentioned you can put it in for 5 minutes or so, because that is something that starts after about 30 seconds. But then again, you don't want to overdo it. But that was a fascinating observation.
Wow, that's interesting. I'll have to figure out how to tinker with that. Okay. Okay, so now for a Q block, if I only have a Q block and I want to put my phone in there, what's the timing?
So I would say maybe similar to the metals in terms of the minimum.
Okay.
And the maximum, you can easily leave it in there for probably 30 minutes. It'll do similar things what the Infinity Blocs do in regards to going into the network, for example. So that's definitely something you can do. But at the same time, it's not necessary, right? If you just want to charge it for yourself and want to have it there, 1 to 3 minutes, that's what I recommend to do.
Okay.
Anything else above that is gravy.
Okay, so if I had a Q block, I could leave it in there for like 30 minutes tops in a Q block, right? Cell phones,
Yes.
Wi-Fi. Okay. All right, so there you go. I'm going to go ahead and leave this screen up for a second. Go ahead and do a screenshot, folks, to keep this as your notes. But these are the timings for how to charge an object with quantum energy. That's just quantum energy. And okay, so let's go to the next one. Now, for charging people, pets, plants, and places, there's a concept here of that you could charge it physically, meaning you could charge yourself. You could put your pet's paw. Plants could go inside the plates. You could take the plates apart, take the rods off, and you could charge bigger things like an entire tree trunk. And you could also charge photos of people, pets, and plants and places. So there's two ways to charge not things that are not objects, right? And so I want to kind of touch on each one because they're very different. But let's just start with these three right now with charging a physical person. If
Yep.
I took my Q block and I took the rods off and I wanted to charge myself, what would be your recommendation on timing?
So the thing to keep in mind here, we're dealing with living organisms when it's animals, plants, and people, and every one of those is very individual. So that's what we need to keep in mind. So people always ask, okay, so what's the recommended time? We can't say that exactly. What we can do is we give some general guidance. And so here's the thing. If you're relatively new to quantum energy and you haven't done any energy work, which even would include things like yoga or meditation and stuff like that, and then just start very with short periods. And with that, I mean not more than 5 minutes in the quantum block at first, at a time. And if you are more experienced, you've worked with quantum energy before, you're a very conscious person, maybe you had other energy devices in the past, etc., you're very tuned in from a consciousness perspective, then usually you can go way higher in the beginning. But you also may want to just test in the beginning, well, how is it with these 5 minutes? because if you're already more tuned in and know how that works, then you can see for yourself already. And then you can probably easily go to 15 to 20 minutes already at first with a quantum block. But again, I wouldn't recommend that for anybody that's completely new to this, because it can start detox effects. It can also overwhelm the nervous system a little bit, and nothing of real concern, but it's something where it may start to be uncomfortable, and you don't really want that. So that's what we recommend at first. But then it's the case that as you get used to this energy, your cells start to upgrade. Your own consciousness starts to basically, your whole system vibrates on a higher level as you're more around the energy of the block, and as you're putting your hands or feet inside, and you can increase that time over time. And probably already on the second or third day, you can do 10 minutes at a time. And then you can easily increase that to an hour or an hour and a half, or even 2 hours at a time over a period of, several weeks. And that is something where we always say you need to tune in with yourself, like feel what feels good to you. And I know that in today's world that's very hard for a lot of people, because we try to think our way into something or out of something, and that's not the way to go here. It's you can use your thoughts for these generalized times, but then you should really try to feel, what does your body say? And it could be as easy as you get an impulse, okay, now it's enough, and you don't even know why, but you get that impulse, then follow that. That's what we recommend to do.
Yeah, because I have read multiple experiences where people got really, really thirsty. And so that's obviously, the Q block has triggered a detox reaction. Yeah, because me personally, I just want to share that I've been sleeping on top of crystal grids and tensor coils for years and years and years before I ever got a Q block. So I kind of like put my head in there for 5 minutes, and then I kind of fell asleep with I had my head in one once for about an hour. But I didn't have any reactions because I've been around all this energy stuff for so long. But if you're new to it, proceed with caution. Nothing bad's going to happen. It's all going to be good. But it might be challenging for your body to adjust to the higher vibration if you go too fast, right? Pretty much.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. That's the case. And then with the Infinity Bloc, obviously even more so. So the Infinity Bloc is...
That's rule number one.
Stronger. Yes.
Okay. So then how long would you start? Like, I put my hands in the eye block. How long, for if I was new?
Yeah, 3 minutes, I would say.
Okay.
2 to 3 minutes, maybe even. I mean, it really depends. It's, to get a very first experience, 2 to 3 minutes, and then you can certainly increase that again significantly over time. And I think it's important we let people know that they can really increase that, right? Because, I could put my feet in there probably now for a whole day, right? And I'd be fine, just because I've been around it so much. But it's something you get into, and then you can also do it then multiple times a day, right? So if you feel like, why not another time a day, 2-3 times a day? That's also a possibility, and then over time you increase that. And with an experienced, I would actually say 5 minutes at first.
Okay.
We've had some people that were very experienced, and we saw that 5 minutes was just an absolutely great charge, but it then started to, even there, start some detox effects. So 5 minutes, I think, at first is fine.
Okay. And that's okay. And then a thing about this too, I just want to point out is, does it matter if I just put, let's say, my hands or my feet in there in a block, or does these times also include, like, if I put my whole body in the block field?
I would actually say that that would also apply for the whole body. You may want to be a little bit more on the cautious side. If you put your whole body in there, definitely drink more, and don't overdo it on the maximum end there. But yeah, you should be okay with that.
Okay. And then, okay, so now you and I had this talk before. So I want to point out full body charging and, removing the plates and things like that. But basically, the plates are 18 centimeters apart as when the rods are on. And then if you wanted to charge your body, as you just said, that, I just correct me if I'm wrong, but charging a part of your body eventually resonates to the rest of your body. So you don't have to get your entire body, like every last little ounce of you, right? You can just get a part of you. So like
Yes.
if I were to lay the plates down and do head to toe, like my nose, and it's just this little 18 cent, this basically it's 8 inches, right? So it's not going to, if you have a belly, you're not going to get the whole body either this way or this way, right? But this way would just be fine. You would, even though your arms aren't
Absolutely.
in there, if you just did this, you'd get your whole body would get charged. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And that's, part of that is because of the network effects of the cells and how
Yeah.
they operate and our energy system as a whole. There's really nothing that is really left out when you're doing it that way.
Okay. All right. And then, but I do want to point out too, if you got a trouble area, like one time I had my knee, I've had a bum knee forever. And I just put my knee in the Q block, and I just put my leg through the whole thing and pulled the Q block up to my knee, and I left it in there for 5 minutes. So you can just put a part of your body in to just treat specific areas as well. But even if you did that though, your whole body would get charged, right?
Exactly. And so one of the things that we usually recommend, so I mean, certainly you can do it this way, absolutely. The easy way is to literally just put your feet in there and put your hands in there, and you may want to rotate that. So,
Okay.
especially if you have something like arthritis going on, for example, and you want to constantly work on this in a physical way, yes, I would do like hands in the mornings, feet in the afternoon, maybe in the evening you do something again. So that's a lot of those things are possible. We had some people that deassembled the plates, and they had, a belly ache or, in the menstrual cycle, for example, when it's uncomfortable, and put one plate underneath the lower back and then one on top of the belly. That's also a way to do it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so that's great. So now, in terms of, let's say, charging pets, like all of our little friendly fuzzy friends, is it the same as people? Is there any difference really there between, let's say, my dog and myself, even though that we weigh a lot differently? Would it be pretty much the same?
So one thing that is definitely the same is that you would want to increase it over time and not start too
Right.
strong at first. And yeah, I would say you can probably do it that way. What we usually do with our dog is we literally just put a picture inside. We never
Ah, okay.
put her inside the blog, because we feel like, okay, now we need to move her there, and and it's really not really necessary. We can put a picture in. That's fantastic. However, sometimes if there is anything that is bothersome, I don't know, an injury on the foot or something like that, their specific spot, then you may want to indeed, put the paw in there for a little bit, really physically.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. So same as people, and obviously the dogs, cats, horses are all going to be new to quantum energy. So start with shorter time frames, and you can use the photo. So that leads us right into photo. But let's get into plants first. Um, Plants.
Yes, difficult.
What do you think about, let's I want to charge my plants, and there's different ways of doing it, but we're talking about blocks right now. If I were to, let's say, put a house plant, and let's say take the rods off and put it between the plates, how long would you charge a plant for? Or like, I'm
I,
growing garden, I want to get really cool tomatoes this year or something, and I want to charge the bed, I mean, what would you do for timing?
Yeah, so I would be very cautious in this regard because we don't know exact charging times actually, because there are multiple different plants. Then you have seeds, you have seedlings, you have already grown plants, so there's a big difference. And from what we've noticed is you want to be rather um, in the shorter time frames here. So with and plants, those do not include little seedlings and seeds. I want to mention
Yeah.
that because you want to be even more careful with those. I'm going to say regular size plants, a plant that has been around already for a few weeks at least, okay, or longer, obviously.
Okay.
Maybe for a minute in the quantum block, possibly up to 3 minutes. That's what I would say. Max, I would really call that max, at first at least. Then in the Infinity Bloc, 10 seconds to a minute max. And we work a lot with plants in a way where we have an Infinity Bloc, not charging the plants in a way where the plants are inside the plates, but where the Infinity Bloc is actually in the greenhouse, as an example. So, and that works extremely well. So with sprouts and seeds, it's probably more in the 30 seconds to, or 20 seconds to a minute to 60 seconds, and with a quantum block.
Okay.
And Infinity Bloc, 10 seconds to 40 seconds. That's
Okay. Is there a max that you would could warn people about?
well, with seeds and sprouts, I would not go over those 60 seconds and 40 seconds respectively. I would just not do that. We don't have the experience to actually give you more guidance on
Okay.
that. So it's really something. That's why I'm rather on the cautious side here.
Okay. All right. Okay. No, that's very helpful. So, and just as a heads up, for folks that are thinking of charging plants, I did an experiment, I don't know, a couple of summers ago with three different friends who all had gardens. And the general consensus was that quantum energy will speed up the plant's growth cycle and will also speed up its flowering cycle. So if you were to charge the seeds, the ones that you charge, and you feel free to tinker with this, but the ones that get charged, and this was consistent, will sprout faster, grow faster, and fruit faster. Okay. But you won't get any like bigger tomatoes. You'll just get a regular normal tomato. It's just that the life cycle is going to go a lot faster. And so that was the
And
one thing that was, was the common thing between all three gardeners. Go ahead.
yep, and I have something to add from our experience, so that we actually found that the size of the vegetables can actually increase.
Okay.
But what we also found, and that's interesting, that has been also tested by the Besa Institute, that the because the quantum energy helps these plants grow faster and even grow bigger and grow nicer, more healthy in a way, they suck a lot more nutrition out of the soil in a much faster way.
Right.
It's really the case. It's absolutely phenomenal. But what you need to keep in mind is that you need to keep mineralizing your soil,
Ah,
and you
okay.
need to do that definitely more often when you use the quantum or Infinity Bloc as a plant support.
Yeah, that
That's
makes
very
sense.
important, because otherwise, there's nothing left in the soil, and
Right.
then where does the plant take that from, right? Then you
Right.
only have the quantum energy, but you don't have the minerals, and you do need that.
Right. That makes complete sense. All right. So I only did the test by charging all the seeds and then mailing it to my friends. Um, so they never had the opportunity to actually charge the plant itself. So what we only noticed was a faster life cycle. So when you said you actually were able to create larger fruit, and vegetables, was that charging the seeds and then also charging the plants afterwards once the plants became
No,
bigger? How did you know?
that that was literally just having the Infinity Bloc
Oh,
inside the
transported.
greenhouse.
Okay, yeah.
And yeah, but I mean, so the thing is, since the Infinity Blocs are quite strong, it's it's a very strong field already. So yeah, there's I don't think you need to literally, if you have an Infinity Bloc and you work with that, you can do this like this kickstart maybe with
Okay.
charging them, but it's a great field if you just have the Infinity Bloc very close.
Okay. Yeah, now that I have a backyard, I'm going to be doing a lot of experiments this spring, and then I've actually got an Infinity Block in the house, so that covers it, right? So that would be the same thing. Okay, that's good to know.
Yes.
All right, no, that's really fascinating. Okay, so something popped into my brain when you were talking about this, and it seems like this would be a caution because what we know what happens with plants, it would be a strong caution to uh, charge a pregnant animal or human without making sure that the same issues are addressed, right? I mean, we don't want to give out any health advice, but based on what you just said about what has been observed with plants, then I would want to say to everybody out there listening to this, if you have a block, be really careful with pregnant things, um, and because of what we have learned about plants, right? I mean, would you agree with? I mean, we just, please just make sure you're very careful.
Yeah, so on one hand, it's certainly absolutely amazing, right? When you're
Yeah.
pregnant and you're getting quantum energy, and for the little one in the belly, that's a quite amazing thing, and a lot of fantastic reports are out there. But you want to stay um, on the shorter time frames
Right.
in regards to that, and then really feel and tune in, so that you don't like, just put too much energy in there. But generally,
Right.
it's certainly a very, very positive thing.
Would you recommend the mother take additional, prenatal vitamins, or, just for that whole idea of it's going to extract minerals and so, nutrients from the host, right? Would you recommend that they take more, or or the recommendation is just use shorter time frames, just to be
Well, I
clear?
mean,
Yeah.
a good way, to do it is, I mean, nutrition is always good, right? Whether you're pregnant or not. So that's always a good thing to do. But something like the Heal Capsule, for example, provides um, very helpful nutrition on a frequency level for a human. So that is something that may want to be used as well. And then, other than that, I would just say, keep drinking a lot of water. Just be
Okay.
healthy in general. Not too much of a concern.
Okay. All right. That's awesome. I mean, I hadn't heard you say that to me before, so that is fascinating, and I'm definitely going to include that in my experiments this spring. So, no, really, really fascinating. Okay, now, so let's talk about photos. That is something that is, it's quantum entanglement. It is pretty wild to think that you could take a photo of something and put it in a block, and that photo, being there would give the kind of like it's like a directional antenna that the energy will go into whatever's represented in the photo, whether it's a person, place, pet, body part, whatever, right? So the first question I've got, and this came up this morning in Telegram chat, which is if I put a person in the picture of a person, does that person and their clothing that they're wearing while they're and the place that they're standing, does that get charged with quantum energy, or does it just get exposed to the field? Because there's a little bit of debate about, are we actually charging that person, right? Like you would, as if you put them between the plates, or is it just that you're sending them the energy? And that being, because there's a
Yes, you're.
difference between being
Mhm.
in the field as opposed to being inside the block, right? So in the field is different. So could you kind of explain the difference?
Yes, so I start with metals, because metals can be overcharged if you put them physically into the Infinity Bloc, as we discussed earlier. But if you put a picture of that same metal, let's take a silver coin, take a picture of that, and you put it in the Infinity Bloc, you cannot overcharge the metal that way,
Okay.
but you still charge the metal, and you literally charge it. So I'll give you an example of a large dining table that we had bought. And it was an antique, super heavy, large dining table that was probably 200-300 years old or something like that. And when we got, it's just a beautiful piece if you look at it, but there was a lot of energetic stuff in there that was bothersome. It was just something like
Yeah.
you could literally feel like there's stuff from some other people in there that
Yeah.
we didn't want to have in our house.
Yeah.
So what I did is obviously way too big to put it in a block. I took a picture of it and put it inside the block and charged it for, I don't know, like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 minutes, something like that. And all of that was gone. It was absolutely, only the beauty was left. And it's absolutely phenomenal. And I know I've done that with multiple little statues, even like a Buddha statue or something like that. And then I've done it with a candle holder. And every time it's the same thing. You completely charge that thing. It's
Wow.
wonderful. You can do it with a big closet, for example. I've done it with a closet, right? I took a picture of it, and it's amazing what you see the before and after. However, you're not overcharging the metals, which means you're also, if you're wearing clothing, even if it's with silver, you're never at risk of overcharging anything in that
Wow.
regard.
Okay.
However, you want to keep in mind, of course, that you don't want to put yourself in for too long. And that's something that we'll write down here, because there's also, effects like detox, or that the nervous system may get stressed a little bit if it's too much energy at first.
Okay. I'm really glad I asked the question. So I'm wrong on Telegram. I actually did not know that. So glad I asked because I did not know that. So if I wanted to actually create a capsule, I could literally put a picture of it in the Q block and it would actually become a quantum capsule because it would literally get charged like as if I put the actual capsule in the Q block.
So
Is
I
that what
would
you're saying?
still say for that purpose, I would still do it physically, because you
Okay.
get a stronger charge in it. But what you still charge it in a basic way. You do that,
Okay.
and I would probably at some point need to go into more details. Okay, what is the actual difference? But I would still recommend you do it that way. However, if there's a friend on the other side of the world that has some golden watch that I don't know, he bought on a um, second hand, right? And there's just some negative energy in there. He can send you a picture of it. You charge it, even though you're 2,500 miles away, and that negative energy will be gone.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's awesome. So there's no max, and whatever you put in the blocks will be charged. But if you're actually going to create a quantum object, it's better to use it, do that, charge it physically. Okay. Put that out there.
Yes, but there is a max for living organisms, humans, plants,
Okay.
animals. Definitely, I would. We need to write down that there are maxes. uh, it's similar to what I explained with, you know, people in the quantum block and infinity block, that you want to start slower and don't do too much at first. I would say you can probably um, double what we put into the first columns there, where it says new 5 minutes, and for the quantum block you can say new 10 minutes, and then experienced, well, it's a good point actually, maybe 30 or 40 minutes. Yeah, I would double it. Yeah, it's totally fine to double it, and the same applies for the infinity block.
Okay. Okay. So good to know. Okay, so then let's say the new would be, let's say 4 to 6, right? 4 to 6 minutes, 10 minutes
Yes.
if it's experienced, and then but there's no max for objects, but for max for people, pets, and plants, you'd want to go what 10 minutes for
Yes.
Infinity Bloc?
Yep. And again,
And
it's very,
okay,
very important to note here with these photos, the same if you charge your hands or your feet, and if you charge yourself with a photo or someone else, you can increase that over time. So these times are only true in the beginning. That's very, very important because you can absolutely charge yourself for 2 or 3 hours in a row. It's no problem whatsoever, but you shouldn't be doing that in the beginning.
okay,
It's something that you kind of evolve into.
stay awake. Okay, no, that's really good. Okay, okay. So just to recoup, it's amazing idea of doing photos, and then okay. So if you're new, if the person's new, let's say we're doing a person, your grandma, lives 1,000 miles away. Put a picture of grandma in the Q block, 10 minutes. I block 4 to 6 minutes if she's new, and then as she does it more and more, or you do it more and more, then you can go up to 40 minutes in the Q block or 10 minutes in the I block. You don't
Yes.
want to go over 40 minutes per session in the queue. Don't want to go over 10 minutes in the I block. And would you say that like you don't want to do, would it be like 2 or 3 sessions a day would be the max you want to do it? Or is this just like once a day? Or, like how many times a day would be something you want to, is this per day? I mean, that's what I'm asking. Are these times per
Uh,
day?
no, well, I mean, I think on the first 2 days you want to do that only once per day.
Okay.
But then you can absolutely go in and do that more often.
Yeah.
That's no problem. That's really something of this evolving period where on the third
Okay.
day already you could possibly do this 2, 3 times a day,
All right.
um, and you can probably a week later you can do twice as much as shown here, 2, 3 times a day.
Okay. Okay. All right. So as people get more experience, then you could do it longer and more often. Okay, I guess that's the best way to
Yes.
put it. Okay. That's amazing. That's really amazing. Okay, so we are coming up to the 1 hour mark, and I realize that we have more content than we could ever possibly do in the amount of time Philip has in any given day. So, Philip, if you're okay with it, I'd like to. I think we should probably like stop here. Maybe I got one more question about it, but stop here and do this like part one, and then do a
Yep.
part two. And of course, we've got a lot of questions that I pulled off a Telegram, which I kind of peppered into what we're talking about right now. So, is that okay? I mean, we can do this like we'll have to schedule another hour, and then we can do the part two and so forth. Is that all right with you?
That sounds great. I think
Okay.
for people, it's easier to digest a 1 hour video and then another one.
Yeah.
And yes, absolutely. Let's do that.
Okay, so this is part one. Part two, we're going to talk about copying frequencies. So I created that extra slide. We're going to talk about copying frequencies, charging guidelines, other things that are things, you need to think about. And then in terms of like, frequently asked questions, just kind of like, just a few off of my experience commonly. And like, again, we did have a lot of questions. I think like 27 questions, 28 uh, from the group. And I think that we did answer several of those questions already, so we're kind of getting a jump ahead. So, before I let you go, and I do so truly appreciate, and I just want to thank you personally, and thank you for our community because I know that you are so busy. It's just unbelievable how hard it is to get some time. But thank you so much for your time, Philip. And then the last question I've got is with photos, right? I mean, Enoch was one of the first pioneers of experimenting with putting like a DNA sample along with the photo. So just before we leave the subject of photos, can we just, what is your take on is it necessary? Does it make it a better experience? But if I were to put like a lock of hair or or like a fingernail of the person that I'm trying to help, is that like required? Is it, what's your take on that? Does it make it better? And,
So
because
it's
that seems to
not
be what people are experiencing is that it does actually work better. So what do you think?
From our perspective, no, it does not work better, and we've
Okay.
tested that multiple times. Photo is absolutely enough to do, but you can actually increase or deepen the experience if you add, you know, a hair as an example. So if you do that, so with the hair, it actually goes directly into the DNA, and it goes a little bit later into your energy bodies. And so it works a little bit different. So it's coming from a little bit different side, and we found that you can increase and deepen the experience if you do both together. By
Okay.
choosing which one to do, we always choose the photo, and we found that the best way if you just
Okay.
do one.
Okay. So DNA samples are not necessarily better, but it doesn't hurt. But the idea is a photo is good enough. That's great. A lot less
Yeah,
hassle.
but again, you can deepen
Okay.
the experience if you add DNA to it. So we've found that it's yeah, it's just a stronger experience that way.
Okay. Excellent. Okay. Okay. Thank you for that one. Um, okay. But okay. So there you go. Okay. So 1 hour at the hour mark. I just want to say thanks again. Thanks for your time. Now, if anybody, this is going to be posted on the Tinkers Academy, but if anybody wants to get a hold of Leila Quantum Tech, you can reach us or reach Philip and Emma at our Telegram Quantum Power group on Telegram. And there's, I'll put the join link in the video description below. We're up to over 2,200 members now. It's pretty amazing. You can also reach Philip at Leila Quantum Tech's website, which is leila.q.com or LeelaQ.com, sorry. And they've got their website and they've got contact us here as well. So there's two ways to get a hold of Philip if you've got more questions, but definitely if you come on to the Quantum Power group on Telegram, if you ask away, I'm one of the mods and I'm on there all the time, and so is Emma. And then if you're trying to reach Philip, then definitely you can post there, but make sure you just kind of do the at Philip thing so that he sees it. And there's no need if you DM him to go into the Quantum Chat group to say that you DM'd him. He will find it, right? He will find your message, but just be aware that that Philip, it's a small company, and this guy works like 70 hours a week. So he is hard to get a hold of, and mahalo for your patience. Is there anything else you want to add about how to get a hold of you and ask questions?
Well, I guess you covered it perfectly, and I just want to say thank you to you, for your time, also for doing this, that you had the impulse here to make this video, because I think this will be so helpful for people. And I know we've always getting these questions, so now that we're actually going through some of these open questions and frequently asked questions is great, it's helpful. I'm looking forward to the part 2. I can't wait. And also want to say thank you to the whole community and everybody out there that's just discovering more of what this technology can do, and helping new members to understand how it works. But also, as a new member, that you're just asking questions is also a great, wonderful thing.
Awesome. It is. I don't know, before we started the video, Philip and I were talking about how great the group is, and it is pretty amazing because I belong to a lot of other Telegram groups, and some of them really devolve. But ours always has such a positive vibe, and everybody's just so full of love and spirit. I love it. So anyway, I'm Kay Elmer, and you can reach me at the Tinkers Academy. So if you want to learn more about what I'm doing, I do have a full page dedicated, a huge section of my blog dedicated to quantum energy, all the tinkering I've done with it, as well as a full section just on LeelaQ, where I've accumulated all of the stuff that Philip and I have talked about there. I've also got a page on my blog where if you're interested in any of Philip's interviews, I've compiled all of them for the last over a year. So you can just kind of see like all the different places he's been interviewed. And if you have any more interest in learning more about Leila Quantum Tech and or Philip, there's all the interviews are there. So for all the last year. So it's all there on my blog. And all you have to do is type in tinkers.academy in your URL window, and it'll take you to that blog. Otherwise, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Philip. and look forward to part 2.
Thank you.
All right, aloha.